Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Ham Nation is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by BarkBox, a monthly box of high-quality, fun, and healthy goodies for your dog delivered right to your door. Save 20% when you sign up for a new subscription. Visit barkbox.com/twit and use the code TWIT at checkout, and by Icom. For more information, visit icomamerica.com/hamnation.
This is Ham Nation, episode 162 for August 27th, 2014. Gordo and the Dipoles. Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of Ham Nation. Bob and Don are both out tonight, but we've still got a full crew here. We've got Gordon, we've got Amanda, and we've got Dale. Gordo, come on in and say hello.
Well, good evening to everyone at Ham Nation. My voice is hoarse because I've been going yahoo as we slid down the face of waves. Big California hurricane surf. A big hi to the Peak Radio Association up in Oregon. Thanks to David and Margot, who says they watch Ham Nation every week. And by the way, Peoria, I played Peoria. I'll be there September 19th. For your Ham Academy, your Ham Radio Instructor Academy, 19th for the Friday Academy for instructors, Saturday and Sunday for Peoria Superfest. And speaking of Superfest, Quartz Fest is on. Chris and Angel will be your host and hostesses plural, this coming January, last week of January. Kenwood, Phil says he's going to donate a tri-band radio, an F6A. Yezu says they'll do a digital radio. Lex says we'll do a software radio. MFJ says you got it. Diamond, who's always been supportive, they're coming in with all sorts of good things. So if you're going to be in the Southwest last week of January for the big RV show in Quartzsite, Arizona, quartzfest at yahoogroups.com. Finally, Hamsphere 3 and 4, Joe, WX4ADX, says it's a great way to work DX. Not really work DX, but you do work DX. And let me know, for those of you out there in the chat room, how you like working pseudo ham radio. You're not really on the air, but it almost seems like it. Tomorrow and the next day, we're doing some testing with lithium-ion batteries and handhelds, and we'll give you more about that. Last Man Standing, we're going to be part of the Papa system on September 28th, so that's going to be exciting. And finally, we'll talk more about the Chameleon antenna, as well as some of the other antennas at a later part of this show. So now that the hurricane swell is up, George, I'll go back to you. How's your hurricanes out there?
Well, we haven't had any this year, Gordo. You know, when we do have them, they're usually pretty big ones. So we'll hopefully not have any this year, but who knows? It's still kind of early in the season. You know, I built this light about a month ago, and I put a fresh battery in it, and I cranked it up, and it's 4 weeks now, and there's still a little bit of light there. I know you can see it glowing, but you really don't see much coming out of it. You can tell it's on if it's dark, but I think a month is about all you can get out of one of these Humana-like flashlights. That's not bad, though. So really kind of surprised at how long that has lasted. Before we go on, though, let's say hello to Dale and Amanda real quick and just see what they'll be doing later in the show.
Hi, George and Gordo and Amanda out in Canyon City. We have just recovered from the Kansas QSO party, wound up with 109,728 points. Thought that was pretty good until Bruce Kaiser or BJ came in with his score at 245,000. So congratulations to him. He's definitely the leader. I'm like in fourth place in high power single sideband right now. So it's a lot of fun. We had a real good time. Got some good videos tonight. Do-it-yourself video from Larry. So stand by for that, George. You're going to enjoy it.
Oh, that's great. And I think I know what it is, and that is a really good video, Dale. Well, Amanda, we've got you on a little early tonight, but I know you're going to be back later on. What do you need from the chat room this evening?
Well, good evening, George. I'm sorry, George, Dale, and Gordo. Finally, Gordo. People have been asking for you for a lot of questions recently. So, Gordo, stick around. By the way, I'm looking for anybody that has any upgrades or new technician licenses. I would love to announce it on the show tonight. So make sure you send that as well as your questions for the group here tonight. So back to you, George.
Oh, thanks, Amanda. We'll look forward to seeing you and Dale both a little bit later in the show. Gordo, I know you've always got some short shots for us here. What have you got tonight?
Well, we're going to first start off with the Dawn Challenge. So, Brian, if you'll go ahead and roll the short shots and then go right into the video. Dawn wanted me to head on down to the water and do a little bucket challenge. So off we went to the seashore, and Brian, anytime, there we go. We wanted to stay a little bit back from the seashore because we got this little thing brewing out on the West Coast. And I know you East Coasters, you get these all the time. We don't see things like this, a Category 5, working right up the coast. And there we are at the very tip top of the picture. And today is Wednesday, and sure enough, it's halfway up Baja California. But I still said, let's go to the seacoast and do the bucket bush. Make that the bucket bush. Even though, look at this, waves 39 feet. Now, those are the seas, so the actual waves breaking on the shore are just half of that. A measly 20-foot shore break. No problem. I've got my bucket, and the surfers are ready. Don, question, did we use ice? Don, yes, we do. This is crystal ice from the local ice factory. There's a blue bucket, and we just wanted to point out that, yes, ice was used. So let's lick ALS. And for those working hard to bucket themselves to get rid of ALS from our mankind and womankind, let's kill it at the very best. And there we are. And that's a close-up. And in just a moment, you're going to see the actual video. But before that, I had to get warm, and the ice was maybe 40 degrees. But look at this. The big swell, it was about 70 degrees. So right afterwards, I had to go for just a little dive in the boogie board. All right, here it is, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge.
Lifeguards. Let's sink ALS. Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Wow.
So, yes, Don, real ice cubes were used, and let's indeed sink ALS. So that's what's happening now. Today, the waves were, gosh, probably 15 feet down at the wedge, and we might have a couple of shots next week of that action. So, George, back to you, and then later on, we'll talk about dipole antennas. George?
Okay. Well, that was great, Gordo. You know, I haven't done the ice bucket thing yet. I've thought about it, but I'm not quite up for it yet. The temperature has been near 100 here, and that's quite a drastic change from that to a bucket of ice. But Don did it. I may have to see what I can do, and I don't know if anybody else on the show has done it yet. We'll have to check with Bob when he gets back. I got a feeling well, you never know. He might have done it. So you're going to talk about chameleon antennas. I've got one we're going to give away a little later on the show tonight. It's a CHA MCOM too, and I don't know anything about it, but we're going to give it away nonetheless. You've been playing with these a little bit. What can you tell us?
All right. Well, we've got the chameleon antenna. I probably don't pronounce it right, but I've got the antenna here. We did several tests of it and a common dipole and the radio waves off-center fed dipole. And we made some very interesting discoveries. So, Brian, if you'll roll the short shots, and let's take a look at dipole antennas. if you're going to string up a dipole, get it clear of anything metal. And if you can, have each side angled down at about a 45 or greater angle, because what that does is it brings the impedance from 72 ohms flat down to a nice 50 ohms when you bend each side down. Now in the chat room, I know you're going to say, well, how close to the ground can I put each side of my dipole? And the answer is you can get pretty darn close to the ground, maybe 6 feet above, and it's going to do fine. And what if I have to put my dipole through a tree? Hey, I've been doing that for years. Just make sure that you use good wire, which Chameleon as well as radio waves provide, so you don't light that tree on fire. And also, be careful. There's only one of you, and we need you as part of our audience, so watch out for high voltage wires, and never attach your dipole to any of the power lines or Edison poles or anything like that. The dipole offers 0 dB gain. That's why they call it DBD, reference to a dipole. The only way you're going to get more gain from an antenna is to steal energy in one direction and combine it with energy in the favored direction. And you do that with a Yagi antenna, the beam antenna, or a cubical quad, or things like that, where you're able to actually channel the energy in one direction. The dipole antenna, when you drape it down at about a 45-degree angle, is somewhat omnidirectional. And so the beam is always going to beat a dipole. The beam, this one here, Dr. Vern's antenna, that's probably about 4 to 5 dB gain. And it's a fun little antenna that he's got on his motorhome, but it's going to beat a dipole. But here we are over at Patrick's place, and there is the radio waves dipole, and we've got coax running right off of it. Notice we space it away from the metal mast, because if you have the feed point right on a metal mast, you're going to get some unwanted coupling. And also notice on the dipole that we've made up our own balun in addition to that other balun that you saw at the feed point. So here's a little secondary balun to help clear the coax of any RF coming down the outside. And by the way, use good coax. Look at that stuff on the left and in the middle. Talk about leaky coax. That is terrible stuff. Well, you can get away with it when you cover it with a sheath, but if you get really quality LMR, land mobile radio style coax, especially one that has not only a 95% weave, but 100% aluminum shield, now you're going to have nothing coming down the outside if you've got your feed point terminated properly. That's good stuff on the right-hand side. Great coax. Stuff on the left is not good. And normally you're going to terminate your dipole to the second one over from the left, and that is the PL259. You don't need an end connector for high frequency, and you wouldn't begin to use any of those others for the dipole going to your HF radio. And again, good coax. Look at this. Ugh. Talk about bad coax. It has turned an ugly green. Moisture gets in there and you've had it. Now, the off-center fed Wyndham, if you get it tuned absolutely perfect, will give you performance on 80 meters, 40, 30, 20, pretty good on 15, and the 10-meter band. But you really need to have an antenna analyzer to make sure that you've got the ends of the off-center fed properly cut to precise length. Remember, when you cut for one band, it's going to affect all the other bands as well. But I like the radio waves off-center fed Wyndham antenna in that if you take up about 8 inches, it's going to come out right on the nose. He makes it a little bit long just in case. And you don't cut the ends off. You actually wrap them back on themselves, and then they'll be perfectly cut to the radio waves, but you always have a little bit to work with. That's the radio waves. Now, we compared the radio waves and the SWR and so on with a Chameleon, and the Chameleon did a very nice job, but the SWR didn't drop in. So with the Chameleon that we were using, that I have right here, we needed to use an antenna tuner, but we found that the tuner inside the radio did a nice job. And when we compared both of them together, once Both of them were resonant. There was very little difference in the great performance they gave us. Much better performance than, let's say, a loaded whip. Now, here's another arrangement of a dipole. And this one has some resistive loading in that upper, what appears to be a ballon. The lower is the feed point. And this is a popular one among the military because it works from 2.5 megahertz all the way to 30, probably all the way to 50, probably all the way to the 2-meter band. And it is a favorite because it lets any radio put out 100 watts without any SWR foldback because it always looks like 50 ohms. I never trust an antenna that always looks like 50 ohms no matter where I tune it, because that reminds me of a non-inductive dummy load. Well, the antenna is not a dummy load. It does a nice job, but did not do as well as the off-center fed nor the chameleon antenna during our test just a little while ago. So it's a good one, but when you see something like this, while it looks really neat, it's going to gobble up some of those watts that you want to go into the air, not be absorbed by a resistive load. But again, it does perform. You can do an antenna tuner, certainly, and what you need to do is, if you want to know, are you losing any power, open up the tuner and without transmitting, feel those coils. Yahoo! Those are hot. Well, if they're hot, that means the tuner's doing its thing, adding a bunch of inductive reactants, but you're losing power in those coils. So if you can, always try and come up with a perfectly resonant dipole. For 40 meters, you'll also get the benefit of having it sort of work on 15 meters. But the 20-meter dipole only works on 20, the 10 only on 10, and the 75 only on 75. By the way, Cheryl's going to be on 3847. I think I said 74 last week. 3847. Cheryl, they will be there to work you after tonight's net. So that's the deal. Get a dipole up nice and high. Bring the antenna sides down at about a 45 or greater angle. Make sure you're clear of the power lines, and you could build your own dipole for about $5 to $10, or you can get one pre-made, such as the off-center fed dipole that once you get it tuned up, it works great on multiple ham bands, or the chameleon, which you'll need to use your built-in automatic antenna tuner in your radio to get it to load up perfect. So the dipole works great. Not as good as a beam, but let me tell you, that's why they call it 0 dB gain. It's not less efficient than a mobile antenna that would be slightly less efficient than the regular full-length dipole. So that's the story, George. Dipoles rule. Back to you, George.
Well, that sounds good, Gordo. And I guess, that's why they call the dipole the standard. Since it's 0 dB, everything is compared to it. What's the gain over a dipole? That's what you always hear. Well, you showed us the SWR there, and you said that you had good matching on it. Have you actually done any performance tests to determine, how they propagated?
You're absolutely right. And George, we used an alpha delta switch that allows us to immediately switch from antenna 1 to antenna 2 to antenna 3. And when we went between the chameleon antenna with a built-in tuner in the rig, and then we went to the off-center fed Wyndham, the OCF did a little better on 40 and 75. We had the chameleon well grounded as indicated. They suggest grounding off of the 3H24 stud. That is so strange. Normally, this is always the hot part of any kind of an antenna you're going to screw into a mount. But no, you do a regular PL259, and inside here is a 3-to-1 ballon. And the wire length is really random. We ran this for field day. Carl was there, and we just strung it out. By golly, we worked Hawaii on the first call. So the chameleon is an interesting antenna and really works well, but again, needs a built-in tuner. So the chameleon and the off-center fed radio waves very close on 10, 15, and 20. The off-center fed did better because it was physically longer for 40, and it did super on 75, whereas the chameleon was not as strong, but certainly not as long. The B&W antenna, the broadband antenna, the military antenna, did okay, but was several S units down from the more cut-to-resonant antennas. And we've heard that before, but let me tell you, your radio is quite happy on the B&W because it's always a 50-ohm match. But you do lose some power in the resistive loading that we experience with a B&W. But for a military installation, George, where they're working power levels at hundreds and maybe even 1,000 watts, what's a couple of S units among Uncle Sam? So that's why you see those a lot in military and commercial use. But us hams, we got to squeeze out that very last S unit. So I really like the family operation of radio waves. And I like Carl's chameleon antenna because both of them do a nice job once you get the feed point way up. And on the radio waves, it creates its own ground. One side 2/3 long, the other side 1/3. Stretch them out and bend the wires back to bring resonance in on 20 or 40. Then see where you are on 75, and yahoo, have fun. Back to you, George.
Well, thanks, Gordo. Well, that just confirms, what I've always thought. The more wire you put in the air, especially if it's resonant, the better it's going to be. So that would explain, as you said, the 40 and 75 meter performance being a little better on the off-center fed. And I like off-center feds. I have one here for 40 meters and above, and I built several of them for different people, and they always, seem to perform well for a multiband antenna. Well, I was at Huntsville HamFest here a couple of weeks back, and I shot some video while I was out there. Last week we had a little talk with Ted Randall there, just a few minutes of the interview I did with him. This week I've got just a few minutes I'd like to share with Joe Eisenberg, the kit editor over at CQ Magazine. Well, it wouldn't be Huntsville without running into my old buddy here, Joe Eisenberg. Joe, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you again, George. It's always fun to see you here.
And I understand you're an international traveler now.
Well, it was the first time in 43 years I've been out of the country, and I got to go, courtesy of the Dayton Amateur Radio Association, to the Hamfest in Friedrichshafen, Germany. And our job there was to promote coming to the Dayton Hamvention. And I also got a chance a bit to explore there and see some of the neat things they do in Europe. In fact, it's Europe's largest Hamfest, had over 17,000 people there. Part of it was a maker fair. And they also had lots of kit building activities in several different areas. And it was really a unique experience to go overseas to a Hamfest and see some of the guys I've worked in Europe. In fact, I got to give them some QSL cards.
Well, who supported you in that? Who's the one that said, Joe, you got to go?
Well, a lot of people have told me I got to go, and then an offer came up to travel with the DARA team to promote Dayton Hamvention, which, as you know, is one of my big loves all my life, is coming to Dayton. And so it was a chance to show that enthusiasm to the hams in Europe and show them how much fun you could have at Dayton.
So would you recommend, of course all of us can't do it, but would you recommend, if you have the means, that is pretty much like a Dayton, you got to go at least once?
Yeah, I would say at least once. It's a very unique experience to go where, surprisingly, most people will speak English, but of course you'll hear German spoken as well as other European languages, and it's just so much fun to see things in their flea market and what kind of prices they pay for equipment, and some of the unique things you could find over there. Like I brought home a couple of small Cold War CW keys, which were really nice.
Wow. So what is the flea market like? Do you see the same gear over there, or is it really a lot different?
It's actually a lot the same. You'll see a lot of the same things. I saw a lot of Drakes and Collins and other Kenwoods, Yaesus, Icoms, things like that you see here. But the difference is you see a lot also of some unusual older stuff. You see a lot of European antique, like table radios and stuff, Telefunken and things like that. And you also see a lot of Cold War era military radios. In fact, a lot more than what you would see here, because of course we had a large military presence there since after World War II. So you'll find a lot of military radios, including from both sides of the Iron Curtain, because once that barrier was dropped, a lot of that gear came into play at the Hamfest, and so it was a lot of fun to see it.
What about pieces and parts? Do they bring a lot of components and stuff? I mean, are there boxes stacked under the table like in a typical U.S. HamFest?
Yes, definitely. There was no difference there. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of people selling all kinds of tubes, transistors, ICs, all the different parts like we get here. That was no different. There was some kits and things like that as well.
So, did you find anything that you just had to have that you brought back with you?
Well, I brought back 4 different kits with me, and 2 of them are put out by Funk Amateur, which was originally the amateur radio organization and magazine from East Germany before the Iron Curtain came down 20 years ago. And so before reunification, that was their organization and their magazine. Well, they now kind of exist, kind of like CQ magazine does in this country. It's an alternative to the DARC publications, and they sell a large variety of kits, some made in the United States, some made there in Europe, and some are their own. The best kit I think I brought back was the Fifi SDR. Now, you can build an SDR kit in about 20 minutes, and this was a lot of fun. It's really all surface mount, and the builder gets to put on like 6 or 7 through-hole components to complete it and put it in the box. And that makes it a lot less expensive tax-wise in Europe because it's a kit instead of a finished product. And you get a little experience putting some parts on a board. It is not a kit that I would recommend if you want the whole experience of putting all those parts on, but not a lot of people have a lot of skill with tiny little surface mount parts. So it's actually pretty easy. You put on a coax connector, a switch, an LED, a couple things that are pretty easy to do. And you put it into the box, and you close it up, and you hook it to your USB port on the computer, and now you have an HF SDR that has switchable pre-selectors, and it's actually an excellent HF receiver.
Is that a very expensive kit?
It's around $149.
Well, there you go. A few minutes with Joe Eisenberg. I shot a little over an hour's worth of video when I was at Huntsville, and that's just too much that we don't have room for it all here on Ham Nation. But if you'd like to see some more of it, the rest of the interview with Joe and with Ted Randall and some others, then go over to amateurlogic.tv. I just put that out. And now let's bring in Dale with some more great videos. Dale?
Very good there, George. Thank you very much. Busy week last week. Besides getting ready for the Kansas QSO party, I did get my QSL cards in from Last Man Standing. First off was Tim himself, and then we got one from Mandy also. I just used that as a lead-in to the next video segment on the 10th of September. Just this afternoon from John Amadeo, I received a whole bunch of pictures of the shack at Last Man Standing. And, of course, there's that wall of fame behind Tim's operating position. So you're going to be interested in seeing that. Tonight, I think we'll have a light bulb come on when we show you an interesting DIY video. And we'll visit Berryville, Virginia for a hamfest and flea market. And then we've got a wrap-up broadcast report from part of the International Lightship Lighthouse weekend out on Long Island. Some really nice videos here this evening. Well, let's work on getting that light bulb to light up first, and we think you'll get the idea watching Larry Shantz. He's WD0AKX.
On a brake light with incandescent bulb. Newer ones probably have LED lights in them. First thing I'm going to do is remove the incandescent bulb and replace with some LED strip lights. I want to make it a low current device. The bulb would work just fine and probably be brighter, but I have these LED strip lights, and I'll cut a section just for size. You can get this type of lighting online. I got mine off of Amazon. You can cut it to any length you need. Now I just had to make up some lettering to go over the lens. So what I did, I had some plexiglass, some kind of plastic. I think it's maybe plexiglass, I'm not sure. But I tried cutting it with a hacksaw first and found it just shattered really easy, so I couldn't cut it that way. So in my toolbox, I found this all-purpose carbide cutter and used it as a scoring tool. And I did use a straight edge, and I was able to cut out the pattern I needed. So while I didn't get a perfectly straight cut along my straight edge, I think I got something that'll work. And then I had this transfer on lettering. It's kind of old, so it didn't want to transfer very well, but I applied that to the plastic. And then what I did was take some spray paint, black spray paint, and just sprayed over the lettering to give me a black background. Then I went back later and kind of scratched off that transfer on lettering. I cleaned up the area as good as I could, and I did have to touch it up a little with a Sharpie along some of the edges. I decided I wanted to add a switch in here, so I put a switch on the back of the housing. Since the LED lights have an adhesive on the back, self-sticking, I decided to mount the LED lights on the rear housing. And then I want to tidy up the wires a little bit here using a cable tie to make sure the wires are not in the way of the lighting at all, showing up on the lens. We'll go ahead and clip this off and things will look a little better. Would be a good idea to put a fuse in line on the DC line here too, just in case you get some kind of a short. Well, looks like everything's working, and now that I'm satisfied with my lettering, although not perfect, I'll go ahead and mount that on the front lens. And the way I have it cut, it just fits in there just snugly. I won't have to do anything else there, except if you notice on the top edge, there's a little bit of a gap there. I'll have to fill that in so you don't see the red on that top gap due to my cutting. Then I'll go ahead and put an Anderson power pole on the DC connector, because that's what I use around here a lot. And that should work just fine. Thanks for watching on 7.3 WD0AKX.
Okay, 7.3 Larry, we'll see you on the post-show net here this evening in about an hour probably. Thanks to Larry. We think that's a great idea. It exhibits that ham ingenuity, and it's really clever too. Well, let's go to Virginia now. We'll take a look at the Berryville Hamfest with Patrick Sullivan and his wife. Patrick's call is KC3CVN.
We're going to the 2014 Berryville Hamfest. I'm a pretty new ham. I live in Washington, D.C., but I was encouraged to go to the Berryville Hamfest as an opportunity to see something great around the area. So I went. Here's Storm. He's very excited about the Hamfest. And it's not too bad a drive. It's only about an hour out there. And here's finally arriving after an hour. This person taking our money has apparently been doing it for quite a while. And then we headed on in. The parking lot was full of all kinds of antennas on top of the cars, like this nice one. Here's another one on top of that SUV there. Here's an Icom vehicle. And here's a view of it from the other side. The Ham Festival, which was packed full of people. Here's some boat anchors, and here's some newer stuff with some antennas. Here's some power supplies and various antennas. And here's some duplexers, and here's the ice cream truck. Here's Liz having an ice cream. And here's Joel from the RF Connection, a great place to get stuff in DC. Here's some helping hands I bought. Here's a center insulator for an antenna I want to make, some pliers and clippers. Here's some more connectors for antennas. Here's for grounding. Here's some rope. Here's some more connectors I got. And here's some shrink wrap tubing. Here's some ground braid and a ground rod. And here's the whole haul. Not bad for about 20 or 30 bucks. I had a great time at Berryville, and I'll probably head back next year.
Okay, nothing like a ham fest and a flea market to get the creative juices flowing. I bet he'll have some new antennas pretty soon. Well, thanks for that Berryville coverage, Patrick. Well, the Great South Bay Amateur Radio Club got some super coverage from News 12 Long Island. That's a Cablevision channel there on Long Island. Club President John Melfi sent us the link. Let's watch it together.
But along the South Shore today, many relived history as part of the International Lighthouse Lightship Weekend.
It's an annual event where ham radio operators get to celebrate and teach how folks used to communicate before all of us had one of these. Peter McEvoy from Massapequa is showing his young son how lighthouses communicated back in the day.
It's fun to preserve the the older ways of making contact and communicating, because it's just become too easy with the cell phone these days.
Thanks for the contact, 7-3.
It's part of the annual International Lighthouse Lightship Weekend that happens on this August weekend in 50 countries. These radio operators, part of the Great South Bay Amateur Radio Club, can talk to any of the 450 lighthouses who participate.
It's important that people know that lighthouses exist. The technology that exists today is basically replacing the old technology, and these were very important navigational aids.
Club members say this technology may be old, but it can still be used today. For instance, during Hurricane Sandy, when the power went out on the island, it was radios like these that let the information get through.
Fire Island Light, Fire Island, New York. It's very important to basically keep up the practice of amateur radio. This way, if a problem exists again, the disaster takes everything out, we can still get vital information to people that need it.
A piece of history that saved lives in the past and can save lives in the future if our new equipment in this digital age shorts out.
In this day and age of cell phones and laptop computers and the internet, okay, there's just, like I said, people don't realize that there was a whole world that existed before all of this 21st century technology.
That was a lot of fun to do. It's so true. We don't realize it. I sleep with my cell phone.
So, it shorts out all the time.
For his does. Well, the event began 20 years ago. It was created by two men in Scotland and had now grown to 50 countries. Good for them.
How about?
Well, congratulations on some great TV coverage there for amateur radio to the Great South Bay Amateur Radio Club. Thanks, John. We appreciate the link. Well, this weekend, Esther and I are considering a road trip up to near the Nebraska border. We may go up and shoot a little video at a special event station at a special enactment of the first Pony Express station in Kansas. Should be kind of interesting. I don't know. I think we're going to go ahead and do that. And this weekend, don't forget the Digital Amateur Television QSO party. That's where they get together in Australia and here in the States and talk to each other over their amateur stations and via Skype. That's this Friday and Saturday. We hope to receive a video about that from this year's event from Don Hill. He's KE6BXT. He sent us the tip and a little bit of coverage from last year's event. Well, next time on September 10th, we will have the Show Me Your Shack photos. We've got quite a few now, including some nice photos from Last Man Standing. And don't forget to send your shack photos and send us some videos like the one from Larry there to HamNationVideos at twit.tv. All videos presented here are archived and available for viewing any time of day at hamnationvideos.info. So go ahead and tell your friends. We've got George up next. He's got Smoke and Solder, but first we're going to catch up on the latest from Icom.
HF, VHF, or UHF, Icom has you covered wherever you go. Check out the IC7410 and IC7200, two HF radios that employ Icom's signature DSP technology. The IC7410 is an all-mode HF transceiver. It's got dual conversion super heterodyne system, a built-in auto tuner, and built-in 15 kHz first IF filter and optional 3 kHz and 6 kHz filters. The IC7200 offers solid performance and digital flexibility. It also includes selectable filter width and shape, excellent receiver performance, and it's compact and rugged, even with a water-resistant front panel. And when it comes to mobiles, have you considered the V8000 for your next adventure on 2 meters? It's got 75 watts of power output in a rugged die-cast aluminum chassis, fast memory channel scanning with dynamic memory scan, complete radio control in the palm of your hand with the versatile mic, backlight customization, and weather scan alert and amateur radio first. And let's not forget Icom's line of D-Star handheld radios too. The IC92AD is one rugged VHF-UHF dual bender. Its submersible construction can withstand harsh outdoor elements, dual watch capability, a built-in voice recorder in DV mode, and optional GPS mic. It's great for MCOM and search and rescue. The IC80AD is another dual bender with extended receive coverage. It's the handheld companion to the ID880H mobile rig that I use, and it's an affordable option for hams interested in trying D-Star. It's durable and splash-proof, and it has NOAA weather radio pre-programmed. The UHF D-Star ID31A has so many features for on-the-go operation. It's got built-in GPS. It's compact and lightweight with waterproof construction. It's got a micro SD card slot and repeater list up for quick access to nearby D-Star repeaters.
Visit icomamerica.com/HF-VHF-UHF
for more information on Icom's line of on-the-go radios.
And you can tune in and enter to win after each episode of Ham Nation. Go to icomamerica.com/hamnation and throw your name in the hat for some great prizes from the Icom swag store. They've got hats, T-shirts, just a whole lot of good swag there. And you could win by entering. You'll also be entered for the monthly grand prize drawing, which is a radio. And for July, the grand prize is the Icom ID51A 50th Anniversary Edition in your choice of colors. It's full-featured, dual-watch, VHF-UHF handheld with D-Star, integrated GPS, automatic repeater list-up, and a lot more. So go to icomamerica.com/hamnation after this episode and each episode and register to win. And Icom's got another chance for you to win a radio, too. We're giving away this IC7100 here. If you'd like to win that, you'll also get a little Tar Heel antenna, an MFJ tuner for that, some great Comet dual band antennas, a lot of good prizes there, thanks to Icom and MFJ and Gigaparts and Comet as well. Just go over to amateurlogic.tv and get the details to enter that one. One other thing I wanted to mention here, Gordo, you remember our old friend Julian Frost, N3JF, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I sure do.
Well, Julian's been busy. He's just put out a new video here. I believe it's how to work DR mode using an IC7100. Just go search the Icom America YouTube page, and you'll find the link there to Julian's new video. And thanks for doing that, Julian. Well, it's time for smoke and solder, and I didn't get out any solder this time, but I did mention a little earlier in the chat room that I had some plastic solder. Well, that's not really true, but it is plastic and you can melt it. So let's take a look at that. This time on Smoke and Solder, we're going to play What's George Up To This Week? You know, sometimes when you work on things, you find yourself in cramped quarters where it's hard to see what you're looking for and sometimes hard to reach. That's when we pull out tools like this mirror on a wand here where we can reach back behind things and see what's going on. And we've also got pickup tools like this where you can push a button and the little claws will come out and grab what you're trying to reach. However, I found that the little claws sometimes just don't grab very good. And I was fortunate a few years ago at a hamfest to find one of these right here. Now, I think this was originally a medical instrument. I'm not sure about that. It's got a pair of handles here where you operate it. In the end, has a nice little clamp there that really grabs stuff good. And you can even hold nuts when you're trying to tighten them up with this. Unfortunately, I broke it. It broke right here. And that's some kind of plastic. I'm not sure what type. It's got to be put back together, though, before it will work correctly again. I've tried to do that with some epoxy, and that lasted for maybe about a year, and then it cracked. And this week, we're going to try something a little different on there. We're going to try some of this shape block. Shazam. You may have seen me use this stuff before. This is little plastic pellets that has a melting temperature of 150 degrees. We'll take a cup of hot water at 150 degrees, drop some of the tablets into it, let them get soft and pliable. Then we're going to wrap it around here and see if we can't repair this. Now, the stuff is not really sticky, so it's not going to stick to this plastic. We're going to have some good way to kind of latch it around to hold it in place. Fortunately, we've got a post right here on this end, so we can wrap around that. That'll take care of this end. There's a little ring right here, and there's a small edge on it, but that's not much. So what I'm going to do is slide a washer down the end of it, and it's just the perfect size that it goes down, and it hits that little ring right there, nice and tight. So now we can wrap our plastic around here and around this washer, and hopefully that's going to hold it in place. Now, the first thing I need to do is get this thing turned in the right direction, and I believe that is how it originally was right there. And then I'm going to clamp these handles where they don't move while we're trying to apply the material. And now we'll go warm up the water. I'm going to stick a cup of water in the microwave for about 1 minute, and that usually does 150 degrees on mine. Your mileage could vary, but we'll measure it and make sure that it's 150 degrees. Fresh out of the microwave here, we had about 160 degrees, but it's dropping. We're going to wait till it drops to 150, and then we'll put our pellets in there. I'm not really sure how many we're going to need, so we'll just grab a little handful here and hope that's enough. Okay, we're down to 150 degrees about now. We'll drop the pellets in, and they're just going to sit there for a minute, and then they'll turn kind of clear, and we can stir them and get them to clump together, and then pull it out. We need to use something that's not plastic, though, and then we'll take it and mold it around our tool. Now I'm going to use a set of tweezers here to stir it with. These are stainless steel, and you can see it's already starting to clump together there. And some of the pellets are beginning to get clear. Others are still white. And one good thing about this stuff is you can reuse it. If it doesn't work out, just take it off and throw it back in some hot water and you're ready to go again. Okay, most of the pellets look to be clear now. So we'll pull it out and see what we got. Yeah, it kind of is all fusing together now. So while it's still warm, we'll start applying it. And it's not going to look that great, but hey, as long as it does the job, that's what we're interested in. Now you can see this stuff doesn't really get super tight. And there's a little tab hanging off here at the end. I may pull out my heat gun, see if we can't warm that up a little bit and get it to stick back down. Yeah, you can see it's melting pretty quick because it's 150 degree melting point, and this thing here is about 700 degrees, so it shouldn't take long. Now let's let it cool and see what we've got. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes now, and this stuff is hardened. And my little tool is working like it's supposed to now. And it's got a little flex to it, but that's okay. Doesn't look like it's going to pull apart. Like I said, it's kind of ugly. But I believe it's going to do the trick. So you can make your own plastic parts with this stuff. It's handy for a lot of different things. You've probably seen me make a knob out of it before. I need something good to do with this. I don't know what, but there's got to be something I haven't thought of yet that this is going to be real handy for. But there you go, shape lock. Make your own plastic parts and repair things. Although Don is not with us live this week, he's here due to the efforts of Memorex. So let's take a look at that now.
From Amateur Radio Newsline Report, number 1932, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, August 27, 2014. Hams in Hawaii were once again ready as Tropical Storm Iselle made landfall on the Big Island on Friday, August 8th. Bill Pasternak, WA6ITF.
As soon as hams on Hawaii were informed that Hurricane Iselle was headed toward them, preparations for its arrival began.
Well, we had the first advisory from the National Weather Service, I believe it was Thursday morning, and taking a look at it, we figured out that it would be landfall in about 10 days. So already started to put out the word and the preparation. The baseline plan was to run our communications over a common channel on VHF, UHF. We have a statewide repeater system for that, and so National Weather Service, Skywarn people would take the lead, and state civil defense and the county civil defenses would be a secondary role, waiting in case there was strong damage on any particular island.
That's Ron Hashiro, AH6RH, who serves as both Hawaii State RACES Coordinator and Emergency Coordinator for ARES. He tells Newsline that everything was in readiness when Iselle made its closest approach.
So as the storm approached the Big Island, it approached as a Category 1 hurricane, and then just offshore, it kind of fizzled out a little bit to a very, very high-end tropical storm. And it hung offshore for 5.5 hours. In the process, the brutal winds, the punishing rains just ground down on the southeast coast of the Big Island. And they took quite a beating over there.
Some 21,900 residents were without electric power, and landline and cellular service was down in some areas, but ham radio kept the emergency responders in communications with one another.
Well, we work cooperatively together. We really don't make a strong distinction between Skywarn, RACES, ARES. We all work together. But we do want to stress interoperability among all amateur radio groups, because Hawaii being the most populated area in the most remote part of the world, should anything ever happen, we all have to rely on each other. We all have to back each other up, and amateur radio is a big component of that plan.
It took about 10 days for things to settle back to normal, with all power and telephone service restored as we go to air. Paul Stetzer, N8HM, has announced a new award for contacts made via the AO-73, better known as FunCube 1 amateur radio satellite. Here's Hal Rogers, K8CMD.
Stetzer says that the requirements for this award are very simple. Just work 73 unique stations on AO-73 on or after September 1st, 2014. That's it. There are no geographic restrictions on your operating location, and no QSL cards are required. When you complete the requirements, simply email your log extract, including the call sign of each station worked, the UTC time, and dates of all contacts to n8hm@arrl.net. Also include the address where you would like your certificate to be sent.
Still on the subject of operating events, keep an ear open for special event station PA70OMG to be operational from the Netherlands September 12th to the 21st, commemorating the 70th anniversary of the World War II Operation Market Garden by paratroopers and Allied forces, which began September 17th, 1944, to help liberate the region after 4 years of German occupation. If you make contact, QSLs go direct or via the Bureau to Papa Bravo 0 Alpha Echo Zulu. More information on Operation Market Garden and this ham radio special event can be found online at pa2p.nl/PA70OMG. And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news, brought to you each and every week for over 35 years and counting at www.arnewsline.org. I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW 73. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. Ham Nation is going to the dogs, and that's a good thing. We want to tell you about Bark Box, a monthly subscription box of high-quality, fun, and healthy treats, toys, and goodies for your dog. Every Bark Box, you get 4 to 6 awesome full-size products, innovative toys and gadgets to all-natural healthy treats and more. And each month's box is new and different. You get different stuff, and the stuff you won't find at typical big box pet stores. And here's the best part. All the treats are natural. No rawhide, no formaldehyde, nothing processed. All organic and natural whenever possible. You're going to love this. Check this out. We introduced Bark Box to Amelia and Ted. Watch this.
Amelia, come here. Come here, Amelia. Look what I got. Come here. Ooh, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. Is it good? Ted. I think
Special offer for Twit fans. You save 20% when you sign up for a new subscription at BarkBox.com/Twit. Use the offer code TWIT at checkout. And BarkBox will give 10% of their revenue to local rescues and shelters across the U.S. and Canada. Your subscription will also help dogs in need. BarkBox.com/Twit. And BarkBox, we thank you for your support of Ham Nation.
You know, last week I asked a question, what frequency does Bluetooth operate in? And the reason I asked that is because we were talking about this Heil HBA Bluetooth adapter. It's got an XLR connector on the transmitter you plug into the rear of your mic, and it's got a 1/4 inch here you can plug into your mixer or your radio or whatever you want, and it essentially gives you a wireless microphone that operates over Bluetooth. Great little device from Heil Sound. And I had asked the question, and you know what? I didn't even do the drawing on it yet, so we're going to do that here in a minute when the video finally plays, and we'll see who wins that. But for next week, I've got a great prize here, and we kind of had a little introduction to one of them earlier. It wasn't the exact same model, but this is another model of chameleon antenna right here. This is the, what do they call this? The CHA Icom 2, and it's advertised as being good from 1.8 to 54 megahertz, and it's only got 60 foot of wire here on it. Interesting design. Somebody's going to win this. It's a really nice looking package here on the matching section. So great looking antenna. We want to give this to somebody and see how it works for them. So if you'd like to win that, then answer this question, and this comes from the General Amateur Radio Operators Exam. And the question is, which of the following devices can be used for impedance matching at radio frequencies? A transformer, B, a pi network, C, a length of transmission line, or D, all of these choices are correct. Well, if you think you know the answer and you want this chameleon antenna, then send your answer to me at hamnationcontest@gmail.com, and you could be next week's lucky winner. And I'll be back in a moment, and we'll give away this Heil HBA as soon as I have a random drawing there and see who our winner actually is this week. So right now, we've got Amanda who's been standing by in the chat room and looking at your questions there, and she's got a few good ones for us tonight. Amanda?
Let's see. I've got some announcements here to make. We've got Stephen KG5 DKS, who's 11 years old, just got his technician license. And Gabrielle KD2 GWK, she just got her technician license on field day. So congrats to you guys.
All right.
We love to hear about those. I like to announce those on the show. Very important. Okay, and also Ray in 9JA, I don't know who that is, would like to announce that the DXCC event on September 19th and 20th is going to be taking place, and then the W4 DXCC event on September 25th and 26th. So all of you DX guys and gals out there, make sure you get on the air for that. And okay, let's go to George. George, K6LER Ed would like to know if your file cabinet up on to your left says top secret. Is there something top secret?
Well, I could tell you what was in there, but I would have to shoot the whole audience here. No, actually, it's not really top secret. What's in here is catalogs from various companies, some service manuals and things like that. I just thought it would be neat to put a sign on there that said top secret and see how long it took anybody to notice, which is about a year.
Okay. Thanks, George. And thanks, Ed, for the question. Gordo, I've got a couple of important questions for you. Let's start with this. A couple weeks ago, somebody had asked, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the call sign, but they would like to know, how has the transition been so far between going from emergency communications to public service communications? Any woes there? How's it working out for you?
Well, the woes were the reaction, which I really did not anticipate, to my little spoof on the change from emergency to public service. Holy smoly. I took a lot of heat on that one. But the transition is not transitioning in that emergency communicators, as they like to be called, are always there for public service, and they just keep right on trucking. So it didn't bother them at all. It just bothered me because I think that's what we're known for in 97.1, and that is emergency. So I'm probably the hardest one that had the transition, but down on the deck level, where these hard workers every day are putting in volunteer time to either do a parade or do emergency comms for big waves overcoming barriers here along the West Coast. They have no problem, and they're just doing their great emergency and service to the public.
Okay, Gordo, thank you. And you know what? I'm not going to change my magnets for my truck. They still say emergency communication, so I'm not changing it. That's too much work. So I appreciate your input there, and I think a lot of viewers do too. Let's go out to George one more time. We have KD6AXQ. That's Dennis, who has a question about he's using PSK 31 on 20 meters, and a ham told him that he had RF bleeding into his signal. Is there any way he can test for that?
If he's got RF getting into his signal, he probably needs to do a number of things. Check his ground system. You saw Gordo earlier winding his little air core bell in there, putting on that dipole. Putting one of those at the feed point of your antenna will often help keep that radiation from coming back down the shield of your coax into your shack. Ferrite beads. You know, there's a lot of different things you can try there, and I couldn't point to any one in particular that'll really solve it. It's just a matter of where it's coming from, and sometimes it just takes a little experimenting to find it.
And run minimum power.
Yes. You don't need, and they don't like you to run 100 watts on PSK 31. Turn it down. And I'm guessing Amanda's frozen.
George, I think I lost you, George. I stopped hearing you. I'm sorry. I'll continue on. Okay, thanks, George, for the answer there. I've got one for Dale now. And this was originally for Gordo, but I wanted to shoot one out to Dale there. Dale, what do you think of cage dipoles for a flatter bandwidth?
What kind of dipole was that, Amanda?
It didn't say. It just said a cage dipole.
Oh, a cage dipole. Cage.
Oh, cage. Yeah, I'll let Gordo go ahead and answer that. That would be good.
Go ahead, Gordo.
Okay, there was a fellow for the last couple of years at Dayton that came up with electric fence weave that offered very broad bandwidth. So yes, I think a cage dipole cut to a specific band would certainly allow you to operate both CW as well as voice, whereas a dipole made of number 14 wire for the same band would either restrict you to CW or to voice. So yeah, a cage dipole or that electric fence dipole, anything with a lot of surface area is going to cause the signal to be more resonant throughout the entire band.
Okay, thanks, Gordo. Sorry, I didn't mean to put any pressure on you there, Dale. And Gordo, I've got one more very important question. I think a lot of people would like to know this. Last week, we had somebody wonder if you can get your ham radio license if you've been convicted of a felony. Take it away, Gordo.
Yes, you can get an amateur radio license as a convicted felon. It's really up to the FCC if they wish to pursue it, but normally they don't ask the question and it's not on any of the forms. So the answer is yes.
Very good. Thanks, Gordo, for being here tonight. Appreciate that. We've had a long waiting list of questions for you lately, so glad you could join us. And with that, hey, you guys, I think I'm done with the questions tonight, and I'll send it back to Mr. George for any comments.
Okay, Amanda. Thank you for that. Some good questions there. And yeah, I'm glad we got Gordo in there too tonight. It's tough getting everyone on every week because, we got the limit of 4 Skype lines there. But we're working with it, and great to have Gordo with us tonight during the question and answer segment there. Well, a while ago I tried to give away a prize, this Heil HBA Bluetooth adapter. Well, I just ran the random number generator and checked the emails there, and we've got a winner. And the lucky winner is Adis, and it says, "I have an inheritance for you." So, no, that's not the answer that we were looking for. So I just, when something like that happens, I just go down to the next person there in the list of emails. And this is Sorum Strayup. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. It's AK4WQ or OZ2DAK. And he's in Victoria, Texas. And he said, Bluetooth uses frequencies from 2.4 to 2.485 gigahertz. So congratulations, Soren. You're going to win that Heil Bluetooth adapter. And thanks for entering. And yeah, everyone go to hamnationcontest@gmail.com and enter over here to win this chameleon antenna for next week. All right, I guess that's going to wrap it up there. Amanda, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Glad to be here, as always.
Yeah, Dale, thank you for being with us tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks.
It was a great pleasure. We'll be on again on the 10th, and we've got a lot of photos in here that we've collected in the last couple of weeks. And to everyone, don't forget the DATV QSO party if you're into digital amateur television or analog as far as that goes, because they do a lot of that stuff over Skype. And then we're, like I said, going to try to go up and visit a Pony Express station. Understand there's an exhibit up there with the history of telegraphy, and we're going to try to get some of the hams up there to tell us all about that. So it should be good, George. We'll see you next couple of weeks.
All right. Thanks, Dale. And I'll be out next week, too. I'll be in North Carolina, where I should have been a couple of weeks ago, but I'll be up there taking care of that job I needed to do there. And Gordo, to the beach.
Here it is, live and direct. I'm headed toward the beach. The waves 12 to 14 feet with that hurricane offshore. See everybody later. Won't be on the net tonight because I got to pull beach duty, but see you down the line. 73. See you all next week.
All right. Thanks, Gordo. And thanks, everyone else, for being on the show tonight. Before we go, a couple of things to mention. Our nets. You can catch the D-Star net on Reflector 14 Module C. You can catch the Echolink net on Star Dewdrop N Star or node number 255800. The 40-meter net, I haven't seen it come through the chat room tonight. I believe it's going to be on 7278. Is that right, Amanda?
That's where they typically try to start. Check a few KCs up and down if you don't hear them there.
Okay, and I also haven't seen the 20-meter net mentioned tonight, but if you've been watching the waterfall over here on my radio, 20 meters is pretty dead tonight, so it's a good chance there won't be a net there tonight. So thanks for being with us, everyone. 7-3, join us again next week when Bob and Don will be back.